Yeah, I didn't have Emmett here hitting his record button to remind me. Um, oh, wow. So, so this will be a shorter recording then for those who are just kind of signing in. Uh, I missed the recording, so I'll just kind of go back. I was talking a lot about the tantric aspects of Venus. We mentioned actually Venus in Western philosophy she's the patron of the prostitutes. Actually, that's Venus. So she's the great prostitute. Well, you can see her on the wall there, and that's actually just how they make Venus in Western astrology, with the clamshell and kind of a goddess coming out of the ocean, like that. And so, in that sense of selling ourselves, or a sense of personal value, and that kind of thing. I'm just going to go on. I'll talk to them about some of those things after, because I do want to go on to the sort of more of the materialistic side of things, and that sort of valuation and the balance. And really, we think of the Venus as at the end there's a relationship, but actually Venus is the negotiation. And any kind of relationship that we go into is a negotiation. It's like, in a way, we think, oh, we get married, now we got the sealed deal, we have a contract. But actually, relationships are these sort of constant negotiations. You always got to negotiate your place, because, well, it's this place where you're giving up half of yourself. You're giving up some part of your dream to help the other person achieve their dreams, in a sense. And so you give up that part of yourself. And so you don't want to just give it up for anything. You want to negotiate a good deal for yourself, and you want to get sort of in a sense, the best deal you can. Well, also the other person is also getting the best deal. It's like with Venus, you always want the win-win, because if anyone wins, kind of really wins, and one loses, if anybody loses, it's like both people lose in a relationship. That imbalance just never really works. Now, it becomes a little bit different when we start talking business, or we start talking money, because then, well, ideally, we still want a win-win. We still want that balanced agreement. Like, I go buy a bottle of water, I just want to pay $1 because that's kind of what it's worth, you know. But if I go to the shop and he's like, "Oh, give me $6 for this bottle of water," it's kind of like, "Whoa, man, that's not fair." And you'll get that at like music concerts, or sometimes you're in a place where he's the only water guy around, and so he's like, $10 a bottle, that's take it or leave it, I don't care. And, well, you'll buy it because you need to buy the water, but you're not going to like that person. You're going to be like, that guy's a jerk. You're not going to really appreciate them very much. And and then maybe the next day you see them on the side of the road and they need some help, and you're like, "Oh, I can help you out for $20." But maybe they don't have any money. Maybe that's why they need the help. But they've just been kind of ripping everybody off for the past week or the weekend at a music concert, and suddenly they expect some help from those same people for free. And so it's, in the long run, these kind of predatory business tactics are never good. Predatory relationship tactics, they never really work out for anyone in the end. Um, it's often very sort of short-term gain. It's like the well, it's like the girl in the bar who just sort of wants to meet guys and get them to buy him a bunch of drinks, and then just go home alone after, doesn't want anything from them. It's kind of this predatory tactic of, oh, I can get the free drinks, but I don't have to give anything up in return. And, oh, it works all right for them for the night. They get a bunch of free drinks, but in the end, they've kind of sold themselves that whole night. Oh, a couple drinks from that guy, a couple drinks from that guy. They've still sold themselves out in a lot of ways. They've still sort of drained their energy. And what'll happen is, oh, maybe there's a very nice guy and they really like that guy, and oh, he's kind of same whatever socioeconomic position or whatever. And she's like, oh, I really want that guy. But he's like, you've been sitting with a ton of guys just getting free drinks, and he doesn't want anything to do with her because he's just like, sorry, you sold yourself out long ago. And so sometimes we think, oh, we got a good chance for some sort of like, again, predatory business tactics, monopoly or whatever it might be. But it's never good for the long run for us at all. Now, again, this goes back to just having control of your senses, having control of also what you own in a way. And so I remember my teacher telling me, my astrology teacher telling me, he said, we were talking about money and big money, or I don't know exactly how it came up. Well, then he said, he's like, I hope I never get $1 million. He says, that's the last thing. He says, I'm sure if I had $1 million, it would ruin my life. Like, I don't have the internal power to take care of $1 million. I would try to hide it here, and people would find out, and they'd be coming for it, or somebody would steal it, or she's like, it would just be gone. And sometimes you talk about that with the Durga aspect of things. She's the power goddess. She rides the lion, and so you have to have the power to be able to control the power that you're given. And if you don't have the power to hold on to $1 million, for example, or you don't really know, like, what would I do with $1 million, then it's not going to bring any good into your life because it's too much power. It's too much opportunity for sensual pleasures as well. Like, you hear a lot of people, they win the lottery and they drink themselves to death, or they go on these kind of drug fooled or booze fooled kind of parties and just really kind of kill themselves. But again, Venus, we enjoy our road to killing ourselves. We're killing ourselves, but it's like, oh, I have drugs and booze and sex, drugs and rock and roll, and it's wonderful. I had a great time. But I know a lot of old bikers actually, who really lived life like that. Oh, they're doing all right, but they've got a lot of health problems, and really kind of broke down their health quite a bit. Uh, I actually should have talked more about them in the Venus, because there's actually, or sorry, in the Mars part, because they actually get a lot, that camaraderie of like bike clubs and that brotherhood actually feeds a lot of energy and gives a lot of energy. So then we get into this sort of idea of trade and what we're valuing things. Like, if we think of art, Venus is very famous for being attached to art, and Venus is art, but Venus is kind of reproduction. Like, if you look at the Vedic myths, Venus is the guru of the Asuras, and what really makes him powerful is he has the power to bring the dead back to life. And so we can see this in different ways. One is just quite literally in reproduction, right? You make a baby, and then you kind of a version of you comes back to life. But we also see it in art, is Venus is sort of this reproduction art, or this art that can very easily be reproduced. When people want more of that creative, that original art side of thing, that's the sun. And so when you get those kind of really creative, really great artists, they usually have a powerful Sun Venus connection somehow. They're doing these really original works. Nobody else could ever really reproduce what they're doing. And that's really the sun that makes everything quite original for them. Now Venus is sort of reproducing, and so we say, in a way, this is, well, it's Venus, but it's also, you can see she's got a lot of sun. The woman who painted that's got a lot of sun power as well. Big square sun in the corner even. But it's very original. Like, nobody would be able to reproduce that piece of art. And so the originality is there. And well, you can see she's very Venusian. So there's the prostitute there, there's some fairies in the background and the dolphin. Anyway, so it's very Venusian sort of a thing. Um, Now, I am going to go back and I'm kind of going to talk about some of the stuff I talked about before. Uh, because we look at the Venus and we look at the beautiful naked woman again. And so when I was at the beach, well, I'll give a different story because I didn't just go to the beach. When I was in Puebla, Mexico, my friend said, Mike, he said, I'm going to take you to the underground club. And I'm kind of a dumb person. I'm not really thinking, didn't really realize where he was taking me. I would have went anyways, but so we go to the underground club, and in Puebla, the underground club, it's prostitutes. It's full of prostitutes. It's I like it. You can't smoke in Puebla anymore in public places, and so you can smoke there. I can smoke weed there. You can kind of do anything in the underground club. Now, it's really funny when you take someone like me to an underground club, bring them in, throw me in a bunch of prostitutes. So very quickly, there's a couple come over, and prostitutes love astrology, right? They love astrology. They love mystic things. They're into the tarot. They're into all of that. So he threw me in the middle of that. And so it wasn't long, there was kind of a table. All the prostitutes were sort of sitting at the table, and I'm there talking astrology and spirituality and God and all of this stuff, and just kind of entertaining the prostitutes. They're supposed to be entertaining me, but I'm entertaining entertaining them. And they're like, oh wow, I feel like, oh, we got this such a spiritual connection. And oh, they're really, really sweet and really beautiful, beautiful girls. Um, uh, but it's just sort of again, I go in there and I've got a kind of a lot of self-value. I know already when I walk in the door that I'm not going home with any of these prostitutes. I'm going there, I'll have a couple, I had a couple beer with my friends. I don't drink beer often, but we'd have a few drinks, right? Smoke some weed, smoke some cigarettes, kind of just enjoy the pleasure of it. And well, the prostitutes, they're kind of, well, their job is this hospitality. Right. So their job is also to make sure everybody feels nice and everybody feels good. And right. They're trying to, well, they're also trying to disarm the men. Right. So we're a little bit vulnerable, and so they can get our money mostly. Right. They're prostitutes, so they want our money. And a friend of mine was like, be careful going there. You'll lose all your money. I went out with all my money. That wasn't an issue. Uh, it takes more than a nice smile to kind of disarm me. So it wasn't a big issue, but it was a lot of fun actually, kind of chatting with these girls, and of course they're doing their best to disarm me, um, which doesn't really work very well on me. Which they also get frustrated because they want to make money. They want me disarmed. They want me to be drooling over them. They want me to, I don't know. My friend kept saying, Mike, just do anything with her. Just grab her. Do anything you want. I'm just chilling. I got my arm around her. I'm drinking a beer, just enjoying, right? And trying to chat. We're doing none of them spoke English, so a lot of text translate. And anyways, like that. Um, and actually, they want me to sort of dive into that, right? Because the more I take it, the more anyways, the more I'd be obligated to sort of pay money or give more money or whatever. There, anyways, like that. So it was actually a lot of fun. Uh, it's a kind of a game, right? They're trying to disarm me, and I play a game where I try to disarm them actually, um, and it's a lot of fun. I don't think I would say neither of us really won. Maybe I did a little bit. I got a whole bunch of text messages the next day wanting to hang out and this kind of thing. But I think it's half because I'm the gringo also, and they all assumed probably I was rich, or at least had American dollars. Um, but this is that sort of prostitution thing where you're trying to disarm with a smile, disarm with your hospitality, right? They're trying to disarm me, but I'm like talking astrology and mysticism and all this stuff that I know they also love, so that they'll let their guard down and stop just trying to push me to get money out of me. I'm trying to get them so they just start treating me like a human being. And so I'm also doing the same to them, not trying to treat them like prostitutes. I'm trying to treat them like just like the lovely girls that they are in a sense. And so we kind of play this game of disarming with our pleasantness in a way. And so that's Venus. That's sort of, I should talk again about, I don't know how well I described it anyways earlier. And so this sense of losing yourself to that other person. And so that's again what the prostitutes want me to do, is to sort of lose myself to my lust, lose myself to their body. And well, then it makes their job easier, because at the end of the day, they're human beings as well. They don't want to just treat me like an object, and they don't fully want to be treated like an object, although it's partly their job, right? So the more I objectify them, the more it's easy to objectify me and just go for my money, in a sense, right? And so it's this money versus body sort of a thing coming together, and everybody's trying to disarm each other. And well, I find it funny because I don't play that game, right? And so I don't think they're not really used to this sort of like, are you really treating me like a human being? You know, as they're prostitutes. That's not what they're there for. That's not really what they're showing their bodies for. And so they get quite shocked, and it can be quite disarming for them. And so it was, like I said, it was quite fun. But what their goal is that I do sort of objectify them. I do lose myself to my lust. And once I do that, or once we do that, we lose ourselves to our lust, our desires, we lose ourselves to our senses. I was talking earlier about the little dog that was in heat, just going for everything. And he's completely lost himself, this dog. His personality's completely gone. You don't even know who this dog is anymore. Yeah, when he's not around all these other dogs, he's kind of a nice little dog. He has some personality. He's a happy little thing. But when he starts losing himself to his senses and all of that, it's just a lost dog, a lost cause. And again, we see that, and we probably, some of us have been there when we're young as well, in our teenagers, where we kind of lose ourselves to our desires. We lose ourselves to the pleasure. But this sort of culture I've been around here lately, a lot of people talk about like Burning Man, and they go to, I don't know, can't remember the names of them offhand, but some of these really big music festivals and music concerts, or consciousness festivals, or these kinds of things. Now, these things are kind of interesting too, because in a way they're like a relationship. In a way, really, walk into a prostitution place, I should treat it that way as well. But anyways, it's like a relationship. And so if you go to, say, Burning Man, if you're not willing to sort of lose yourself to that vibe of Burning Man, you're not going to have a lot of fun there. You've got to be ready to kind of like just kind of lose yourself, drop that ego, drop that sense of personal identity. Same as trying to get into a relationship, right? You have to let Burning Man in. You have to let that partner come into you and see you, and hopefully they're open enough. And that's, I guess, what makes Burning Man so famous, is everybody's just open, and what they're really highlighting, the giving culture. It's everybody's like, hey man, come here, I got something to give you. Come here, I got something to give you. And well, even that giving is a way, that's like, I come in peace. All right, I don't come with a gun, I come with a gift. And so that's Venus. I come with some flowers, I come with some chocolate, I come with, they were talking about the best margaritas on the planet, or I've given away all kinds of drugs, and right, but the best and the best and the best. And in India, they talk about this as well a lot of times. It's like, you want to give a gift to someone. Say I've got a box of chocolates, but they're not all the same chocolates. Some of the chocolates are better than others. And so I got this box of chocolates. I want to give you a gift from this box. Now, India really highlights like that I should give you the best chocolate in the box. If I really value you and I like who you are, then the guest is kind of God. So you give the best of what you have. And again, that's Venus, the finest of everything, the fine food, the fine art, the fine drink, the fine dining, the finery, the nice silks, the fine clothing, the nice style. Venus is style. Um, and so really the finest of everything is what Venus is. Again, I talked about the Ayurvedic side, that refinement of the ujas, which then kind of makes the sexual fluids. And that's the finest, the most fine essence of all of our bodily fluids are these sort of sexual fluids that we have. That's the closest to our essence that there is. An essence is like a spirit. And so then you make love with someone, and okay, so I'm a man, and so I ejaculate my spirit into the woman, into the womb, and my spirit enters the womb, and it kind of enlivens that egg. It brings life to what was otherwise just an egg. And so that's Venus, that finest of everything, the essence. Very spiritual, he's the guru of the mystics, right? He's the guru of the people that see gods and spirits everywhere. The guru of the forest fairies and the nymphs in the forest and the ghosts and the goblins and all these kind of like spirits, essentially. Now, well, we don't really use this word so much anymore, but we used to call alcohol, especially the hard alcohol, we called it spirits. The word alcohol, actually, it's a Muslim word, actually, a Arabic word, al-kul, and it means the spirit. And so that's another thing we kind of, you look at a lot of myths like Pan, the god Pan, and some of these kind of drinking parties, these drinking celebrations in the past. And it's kind of why we like alcohol. We like to drink because we lose ourselves. We get sort of possessed. That's why they called it alcohol, because you drink that booze and you become possessed by these spirits when you drink. And so we kind of like that. We lose ourselves. It gives us a chance to sort of get away from ourselves for a little while and become possessed and become a different person. And well, we had some young guy came and joined our group yesterday. Oh, he was completely high. He was completely out of, nobody knew who he was. And he would talk, and it sounded like he was making full sentences, but nobody could actually sort out what he was saying because he was possessed. He wasn't himself. But there was another side of me that was like, when you see this with a lot of young people, you get a sense sometimes that they're not acting that way just because they're drunk. They're partially acting that way because they've had some drinks and it gave them permission to act any way they want. And so sometimes you see young people and you're like, are you drunk or are you just acting drunk? In a way. And so this guy was kind of like, it's like, are you stoned or are you just kind of acting like you're stoned? This is what you think stoned should be like. And so you're being like this, like, but Venus and the alcohol and the spirits kind of gives us that permission. That's kind of the point. I think it was Halloween. Not really sure. I don't know these festivals so well, but I think Halloween, if you look back in the past, it used to be the sort of big masked drinking party. And the mask is also, well, Venus is also the masks we wear, right? Because we put on clothes, you put on style. Your style is your mask. Your style is, you're kind of hiding behind something with your style. And so it's one of the difficulties of Venus as well when it comes to problems, because Venus will have a problem, but it'll smile. Ah, no problem. Everything's good. Thanks. Oh, it's wonderful. Like this kind of thing. And so Venus will mask our problems. We'll see in astrology, Venus in the sixth house, see a lot of addiction tendencies there. And Venus will mask the problems rather than facing them head on. And so Venus becomes a little bit difficult there. He can also become a little bit of a healer there, but usually more of like a spa healer or these kinds of things. Get out and have some fun and let loose and kind of like that. I think of this kind of anarchist land I was living in the west coast of Canada. Andréan, you know the place. And I don't know if you were there through a winter or not. When you say through the winter, there's not so many people there. And you get once in a while these really people come in from the city, they're just stressed straight out. They just can't deal with anything anymore. Whether it's family or work or whatever, they're just freaking out. And they would show up on the land. Yeah, this is usually in the winter. And they show up and they're kind of desperate and they don't really have anything. And so we kind of bring them in and say, okay, just chill out. Go find yourself a place in the back. At that time, there was still some kind of cabins and things out in the back that were free. And so it was like, go find yourself a place to stay. Come to the kitchen. We'll feed you. And we used to give them 1 gram of weed and 1 gram of mushrooms per day. And just sort of like, here, go chill out, man. And I was quite amazed. This is again very Venusian sort of treatment, right? Drugs, alcohol, all of this sort of stuff, try to possess them for a week. But it was really amazing. You didn't usually see much of these people. They're kind of hid back in the forest and did their own thing, went crazy or whatever. But after about a week, then they would kind of come out. And wow, the change in these people was incredible. Just by chilling out in the forest and taking a bit of mushrooms, a little bit of weed. Both of these drugs, they're kind of downers, I guess. They chill you out. They bring the anxiety down. They sort of, I think mushrooms is, I don't get much effect on mushrooms, so I've never had hallucinations or anything. I've only done it a few times, but I did do it. Well, I did it experimentally on Fool's Land and it's on this land because it was like everybody's doing it medicinally. And so what is this? And so I did a bunch and it didn't do anything. And then I had some stress. I think I broke some more bones and money stress and living stress. The temperatures dropped. It was cold or whatever it was. And I was stressed out living in the forest. And so I thought, well, we're giving this to people when they're stressed out. So maybe I'll take it now I'm stressed out. So give me some mushrooms. And so I took some. And I actually noticed the anxiety, whatever I was feeling, just dropped. Like this internal sort of vibration or whatever. And so it's quite interesting, I think, something like mushrooms because it's kind of famous for those sort of sensory hallucinations or sort of heightening the senses. And now I don't know what effect it has on, say, a person's control over their senses, but it seems to kind of tweak them. So you more light comes in and more sound comes in and the skin is a little bit more sensitive and you taste a little bit more, the smells and everything sort of gets heightened a little bit on mushroom. Um, and it's really nice. For me, I found it very sort of calming because kind of what also happens when we get into our senses and we go out into that sensual world is we get away from ourselves a little bit. Like Venus's favorite sign is Pisces, which is the 12th house, which is the fantasy world, which is the as far away from you as you can get, in a sense. And so, well, that's why people go to something like Burning Man, right? They've got usually, well, they tell me these days, a lot of people, Burning Man tickets are really expensive and things like this. And so you get people, they've got jobs, they've got lives in the city, but they just want to lose themselves for a weekend, right? They just want to get away from themselves. And this can actually be very, very therapeutic. It, everything in moderation, in a sense, right? Uh, And so it's even for me, I'm in Puebla, and my friend is like, let's go to this underground club. And for me, part of the reason I'm traveling North America and then I'll go to Europe is to kind of, well, I've been staying in the ashrams and I've been staying in these holy places for so long. It's like I kind of want to also get away from myself. I want to experience something different. I want to see something different. And so it's very nice. Go to the strip club, go to the prostitute bar and right, have a couple drinks. And how often do I ever drink? And I don't mind. I don't have any solid rules in my life about anything like this. And so just kind of get away from my normal routine, see the world a little bit differently. Um, in a way, sort of see it through their eyes. Yes, Andrea.
Yeah, it's almost like when you say you give into Venus, you lose yourself. Because if you've been staying in one place for a long time and we have that kind of like human need for change and for something different, and you go to a place that'll make you lose yourself, then you have this possibility of like, becoming something new or like having this creation, bloom within from losing yourself is like a power of Venus, I feel, no?
Yeah, well, it's that creativity that sort of comes by that. You get to see the world through new eyes, through different eyes, through different perspective. Vijeta invited me to her place in a couple weeks or a week or two. Can't remember any, it was all we're figuring it out. But she was saying, oh, and the kids will be mostly at school and this kind of thing. And that's another way for me. Like I hardly get around children. I love being around children. because again, I get to lose myself. I get to sort of see the world through these children's eyes a little bit. Um, and and it's not so much like I love myself. It's not that I want to like completely get away from myself, completely change my life or anything like that, but the value in being able to sort of see things from a different perspective. Um, it's really sort of there's a lot of value in that. It's why we travel. It's why we do trade with foreign countries and foreign places. Uh, because there's just so much value in seeing the world through someone else's eyes, and you can't, or just seeing through a different perspective, and you can't do that unless you're willing to lose yourself to a certain degree. Now it's like me with the prostitutes. I had my limits. I was willing to lose myself so much to have a few drinks and kind of be there and hang out, but I didn't go all the way, right? I didn't completely lose myself, or I would have lost my whole wallet that night, probably, right? Um, and I knew that when I went there, I knew I wasn't willing to go all the way. I knew I had my sort of boundaries and my limits. Okay, I'll lose myself this much, and that's good. And well, again, I think that's probably because of like I self-worth. I would feel very, very cheap person if I went home with one of these prostitutes. I'd feel very, yeah, I'd feel very cheap. Feel like I sold myself in a way. Um, and so like this. And so I guess from that perspective, you could say I didn't get the full experience because I still had some walls up. I still had some boundaries. Um, and that's all right. Like we all have our sort of limits. How much am I willing to lose myself? And that'll also depend how much you kind of like yourself as well. Like if you're really, like if you're at a place of kind of, and chances are, I don't think any of us are here probably, but we'll have some clients like this where they're really in a place of sort of self-loathing and self-hate, and they don't see any value to themselves at all, and they just sort of give themselves out anywhere, and in a sense they're looking for that really big change. They want that miracle that sort of changed their lives. And and what happens though is they're kind of looking for it everywhere and in everyone and everywhere they can get. And so there's a very good chance they will get the big change in life, but it's probably not the one they want. It's not the one they really want because they don't have any value. They don't really know, they don't really see one life as being worth more than another life in a sense, or one activity isn't really worth more than the other. If it'll bring change, it'll bring change. And so they see that we have friends that do this, they kind of go overboard. Oh, not so much anymore, I don't, but certainly when I was in my earlier 20s, I had a lot of friends who were, they just didn't like their life. They didn't like the family they came from, they didn't like where they came, and they're just, they want change and they want to lose themselves, but the only way they know how to do that is through drinking and drugs. And so it becomes very problematic and doesn't work out too well for them. So so this is that. And really it's like I talk about going to prostitutes, but actually like we all have a Venus inside of us. We all have an inner prostitute inside of ourselves. Like I was willing to sell myself so much, I guess, to have that, anyways, to be able to enjoy an underground club in Puebla. Um, and so we're all sort of willing to sell ourselves so much. Um, and so we kind of ask ourselves, like, what am I worth? How much am I willing to sell myself for? And of course, if we're sort of independent business people, you do music on Leon, right? And so it's like, how much are you willing to sell yourself to do music? And it's a very fine line because, oh, maybe you want to do some shows for free so people can hear your music and they get to know you. And well, it's kind of fun anyways. And so you're willing to do so much for free. But there comes a limit where if you're giving too much away, then what? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's interesting because when you were talking about when you get possessed by drinks or drugs, you let yourself down, and I mean you let yourself out, and you can be kind of who you want to be, you know, like you can kind of let yourself be possessed, and you can, oh, all of a sudden I have a reason. Well, that's the reason why I like performing. Like, it's because when I'm on stage, then I can do the things that I always want to do on a daily life, but I can't because people will tell me I'm weird. When I have a space to do it, you know, I can just like, I can do whatever I want because I'm on stage. That's the real payment for me, you know, like it's
Yeah,
like, oh, like it's not even so much about the money. I mean, it is because like if you don't give yourself that worth to some people, you'll get played, you know, you
yeah,
want to be paid most of the time. But like the real important, if I'm paid for an event, but I play in front of people that think I'm weird for playing my part, then that will not be a fun show. But if I play for an event that I'm not paid, or I'm paid very little, but I can act out and I can perform the way that I want to perform, then that will be like really satisfying. That's a good deal, you know, like that's a good exchange. Is like when I can let myself be possessed in that, and
exactly.
you can play, you know.
I'm very much the same with these talks and things like this. Like, I love sharing this, but I need audience. I need people who are interested in it and will sort of play their part of the listener in a nice way, and it works quite well. There's another side, like it's like when you go on stage, it's like you kind of put on the entertainer mask. Now you're the entertainer. You're not Andrea, and so you're that. Now I'm the entertainer, so you're allowed to do things that you weren't normally allowed to do with them, and so that's part of this sort of mask as well, and the hospitality and the entertainment thing and all of that. It's we wear these masks. In a way, that's what the booze and drugs do too. They hide our true self, and so we are able to act in these different ways. Um,
It's a lot about fun. I feel it's a lot about pleasure and like children aspect of it, right? It's like,
yeah,
woo, I got this mask on. It's let's play, you know, like
yeah,
it,
exactly.
it's fun.
Get around children, and all of a sudden, I'm not just Mike. I'm like Uncle Mike, or I'm like, right, Le Monsieur. I had one lovely girl calling me all the time. I'm going to see her soon. She'll be a teenager now. Wow. Anyway, so um, and so yeah, we get to play these different roles, and well, I guess Venus is the planet that tells us like all the world is a stage, and all the people merely actors, and so we just sort of play our role, but we shouldn't feel like we have to kind of stick to costume, stick to this role, right? We've got more than just that one role in life. We've got sort of different things that we can do in life, and different roles we play, like tantra, like you are everything. And so I play the role of friend, I play the role of traveler, I play the role of uncle, I play the role of, stranger sometimes, you play the role. And so we take all of these, we're playing all of these different roles every day. Um, it's funny, I'm quite, I travel a lot. And so there's sort of this, geez, I don't know, most sort of cosmopolitan English, I'll call it. And so I don't notice an accent like Canadian, American, even a lot of UK people, even some Australian people. I don't even see the accent in them. I don't hear it. It's just they're speaking English, it's English. And of course, then we always forget that we have an accent ourselves. And so well, all these Texans, and most of them are very cosmopolitan. So it's kind of normal, average American Hollywood accent, maybe. Anyway, so you don't notice the accent. But then they've got a couple friends that come around where it's just like, God, I can't understand a word they're saying. And people also coming to me and they're like, oh, your Canadian accent is so cute. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I have an accent in these parts. Um, and so that's kind of a role. That's sort of like, it's like the universe sort of puts me in this role of being the Canadian, right? And they can hear it right away as soon as they hear my accent, apparently. Which kind of disappoints me. I thought I had a European cosmopolitan accent as well, but apparently I have a Canadian accent. Eh? Um, so so this is kind of Venus sort of playing all these different roles and teaching us how to play these roles. Um, I'm going to kind of go back again, and we'll bring up some of the stuff I talked about a little bit earlier and missed the recording on. 'cause I think that was important, this stuff about again, some of the tantric practices, like Abhinavagupta, the Adi Guru of Kashmiri Shiva Tantra, you could say. His focus was the theories of aesthetics, the theories of theater, how to sort of draw these different emotions out of people, and how people sort of lose themselves when they go to theater. Um, the other side of the tantra, and again, I think it does come from, I think it's Vajrayana scripture, that Buddhist tantra, where this practice of non-ejaculation comes out. And again, that sense of not ejaculating, it's not just don't ejaculate your seminal fluids, like don't ejaculate with your senses. Don't waste it. Don't just put it out all over the place. It's like, don't waste your energy is basically all it's saying. And if we think of ourselves as being yogis, then we want to have that sort of one-pointed concentration in a lot of ways. We want to know where we're going. We want to sort of just focus on the path and go there. It's like, well, I hear a lot of people as I'm traveling, like, especially when I come places like this, a lot of settlers I'm staying with now, and in Edmonton. And anyways, you get around the sort of settler people sometimes, and they're like, oh, wow, I would just love to travel as much as you do. I would just love to sort of have that life. And then they come the next day and they're like, oh, I bought a new snowmobile. And it's like, well, one thing, it's like you can see what they really value, whether they value the travel or they value kind of snow sports, I guess. But then it's also like, well, they wanted to travel, but they wasted their energy on the snow machine. And so you can see really they didn't really value the travel. They didn't really want it, but their focus, their energy was on that. But if they really did want the travel, well, then they just wasted all their money. They don't have money for travel anymore. But our energy is the same. We've only got so much energy. We only have so much power. And so you want to put it out on what's going to get you what you want. And Venus is very much that. Like, what do you want? What do you desire? That's kind of the question Venus is asking. That devil, like, I'll give you anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt again. I was just thinking about, like, I know some people that are kind of like hoarders, like it's almost like they don't give out any energy. Like if you think about money, for example, they'll have all those dreams. They'll be like, oh, like I want to go live on my own. I want to get out of my parents' house. I want to go to school. I want to travel, but they're so afraid. They have money. They've worked for it, but they're afraid of spending it. They're afraid of doing the things that they want to do. Is that coming from a debilitated Venus, or is like, what's that energy coming from? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just interested in that aspect, the
no,
opposite, not being able to give out energy at all.
no, I'm really glad you brought this up. I like your questions and comments. So we raise the hand anytime. Um, this is a bit of a Venus sort of like possessing and holding and not letting go. And that's one of the things like a healthy Venus does share. But it shares in a balanced way. It sort of gets something back for what it gives. And so that give and take is always sort of balanced. And so it's like again, it's like I'll talk about the beautiful women, giving out all the energy, and you see these like young guys staring and gawking. They're not getting anything in return for that, right? It's very different if, like, I don't know, you're out at the park, we were at a park, and so you're out at the park and you sort of like, I don't know, maybe you just see one person and you sort of feel some connection, and so you go over and you say hello, hey, how you doing? And you kind of have a little chat for a little while, and and maybe it's sort of meaningless, and maybe it's just a chat in the park or whatever, but there's an exchange of energy. It's not just the energy flowing one way. And so with your friends, what they're doing is they're not exchanging energy, they're hoarding their energy. And even for what they want, they're not willing to go out and get it. And it's like, you could even say that for a guy sitting in the park and he's like, maybe there's one girl there who really does attract him. Maybe he's not looking everywhere, and he's looking, he's staring, and but he's not doing anything. He's just sitting and he's gawking, and she can probably feel that. And she probably, after a little while, she feels a little bit creeped out by it. But if like fairly early on, he would have just got up and walked over and said, "Hey, how you doing?" Right, and let out some of his energy. But as he's sitting there staring, that sort of energy is building, but it's not going anywhere, and so it gets a little creepy. Um, and maybe if you went up too, she might think, "Oh, creep, go away from me." But then it would be cut. That sort of bind would be cut, and so he'd go find another one, hopefully. Um, but again, maybe not. Maybe he keeps sitting in the back staring and whatever. But he's just, well, he's wasting his energy. Um, but he's, I don't know. It's also like you're saying, the hoarding side of it. And so we have to let our energy out. We have a social side to us. And Venus is very much that social side. And so we do need to let some of that energy go. I still remember, so most of my 20s, good chunk of it, I worked construction, like civil construction management. I was a big boss man, and just work all the time. And I'd big parties, sort of binge parties on a weekend once in a while, this kind of thing. But then I remember a friend of mine, well, I was studying and reading a lot as well, but in a way, I've kind of been a little bit for a traveler sort of person. I'm a bit of a serious person in a way, but I remember my friend came over with a backpack full of paint and canvas and everything like this. And just, he didn't even say, he just left it and he said, "Here, just play with this." And then he left. And it was really nice, this sort of paint, this creativity, because well, at that time, my father had just died within the past year, and I'd moved and I was trying to go to school, and anyways, a lot of was going on in my life. And well, actually, at the time my father died, it was a Rahu time for me, and so I had three kind of big hits in my life. I think I got my hearing aids then, and a girlfriend for several years broke up, and so anyways, I kind of had this. My energy wasn't. Well, it needed some healing, and so my friend just dumped all this canvas on me. Said, "Paint." And it was really nice because I was able to get a lot of this energy out on canvas and on paint. And it was funny because I started out, I was a little rough, and I was like actually trying to like paint something. And well, if you don't know how to paint, it's really hard to paint something. Um, and then I switched my tactics as I got looser and I got more comfortable with them. I switched my tactics and I just started like throwing paint at the canvas, smearing it, and really letting the emotion out in it. And so it was really, for me, it was an amazing sort of art therapy. And art therapy is great. Like, well, I talk about it with the painting at that time of my life, but it was only 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago now, that I started singing. And I never used to. I'd sing a little bit if I was at an arty, but I wouldn't sing my own sort of on my own. And so I've been singing now for quite a few years, and just loving it. That sort of art therapy. It sort of lets it out, and several of the songs I sing, there's no fixed melody, and so I can sing it kind of so many different ways. Uh, and it's really beautiful. I thought, like, yesterday I woke up and really long travels to get to Austin, Texas, and so I got up in the morning and I went outside, and I did my songs, and I was really tired and I was really draggy, and but I thought, oh, that was one of my most beautiful performances. I only performed for myself, sorry folks. Um, I performed for myself, but it was really one of my most beautiful performances. It was kind of this old raspy voice, and I was singing a little bit slow and in a little bit of a lazy way, but oh, it was such a beautiful thing. But again, that's part of the what art kind of frees us, right? It frees our emotion, it frees our sense of expression. It was, we think of the sense of permission, and Jupiter's sort of the one who sort of, they say, gives permission, but Venus is the one who sort of says yes to everything. But one of the interesting things, like if you talk to artists, and I remember like when I was kind of going from construction and moving in towards more like studying writing at the time, and uh, doing art, it was really interesting because once you say that you're an artist, you tell people you're an artist, you get a little bit more permission to act a little strange. And so Venus kind of allows that. So yeah, I'm an artist, or oh, I'm an actor. And so everybody's like, oh, that guy's an actor. And so you can suddenly you can change your voice, you can do all these kind of strange things. But if you're like, oh, I'm a civil engineer, and then you start changing your voice and acting like an actor, everybody thinks you're bonkers. Everything thinks you're just being a weirdo. But if you start off and like, oh, I'm an actor, I'm a theater guy, or whatever, you're free. You can play, you can enjoy much more. You can take on the different masks and the different roles. And this is kind of what happens, you could say, to well, a lot of the civil engineers in a way. They're like, oh, I'm a civil engineer. And they stick themselves in this little box and they become very sort of hard. They don't get a lot of permission to act in a different way other than being a serious engineer, in a sense. Now that's not fully true. I used to know a lot of engineers and they can cut loose pretty good, but kind of that sort of perception of that sort of person that's like, this is who I am. Um, and we have to be careful of that, putting ourselves in too much of a box. Again, the two spiritual paths, one says, well, you're not that, you're not that, you're not that, you're not that, you're not that. And the other says, well, yeah, you are that, but you're also that, and you're also that, and you're also that. And I love Nietzsche's quote, like, of course I contradict myself, we're full of possibilities. And well, we have the whole universe inside of ourselves. And so we're completely full of possibilities. And well, we think even well, magic and miracles, and there's so many things that were impossible just 10 years ago. Like, and now we're doing these things like think of 100 years ago, how many things we do today that were absolutely impossible then, right? We go back like 1,000 years, and this whole world that exists is pretty much impossible to their eyes. But yet here we are, and we're doing it. We're constantly overcoming even the impossible, and you have that inside of us. We all have all these. Oh, we're so full. It's like, well, yeah, you are that. You're a singer, and you're a dancer, and you're an entertainer, and you're a partner, and you're a spouse, and you're a traveler, and you're a Canadian, and you're whatever. We're just all of these things. We're just everything and more. And I really like that about tantra. When you study it, it's like here's the parameters. Oh, and go beyond that. Here's the limit. Oh, and go beyond that. And tantra is always sort of like, here's the limits, but you can go beyond. It's like the first part of this course, I was talking about the 36 tattva, but actually I listed 38 tattva. And then actually there's more than that, right? And so it's like, here's what reality is, but you're always going to find more to it. There's always going to be something extra. And even kind of on our spiritual paths, it's like a lot of people look at me like kind of a guru, and they're like, oh, you're an enlightened person, and these kind of things. It's like, well, you can see it that way, but when I look at my life, I still have a long road to go. I still have so many changes to undergo, and so much to experience in this life. And for me, and maybe it is because I'm a traveler, there's kind of, I don't have any rules or limits on what I want to experience in this lifetime. Right? It's just I can't even imagine what this universe has to offer me. And so I'm kind of ready. Yeah, go ahead, Andre.
It just sounds to me a lot like Venus is trying to teach to let go of the whatever mask we are actually wearing, like whatever act that we're putting on every day. For example, you're a civil engineer. I am a civil engineer, father of children. They have this role very defined, and then when you let Venus kind of enter, you let your guard down, and the possibilities of being who you actually are, which is infinite, is suddenly there. So you open up yourself to changes and to let go of that role and just simply be exalted into your own kind of person. I feel like that's kind of the lesson there that Venus brings, is just be who you are, right? In that moment, don't act like who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's very much about like letting your guards down, being well, all this advice about like sort of being vulnerable also sort of fits, but it's not just that. Like men kind of go, oh, I don't know if I want to be vulnerable, right? But let their guard down. And I think, like, again, the way we use language sort of for different people to say the same thing. But yeah, Venus is very much wants us to be defenseless, wants to just teach us to kind of let those guards down, drop the walls, be defensive, be passive, um, listen to the universe, right? Again, maybe very important. We're talking about that sense of being present. But when you're present in the moment, it's through the senses that you're present. Like I remember a friend of mine used to say this, used to go like, we'd be kind of talking. Maybe there was just a couple of us, but his hearing is very good. And he would sort of drift off and just like you'd see him. And he'd just like go off to another planet for a moment. Right. And I'd say, hey man, what's up? And he'd say, oh, I just want to take a moment to be present. And I'd be like, man, we're talking here. You're in a conversation. Presence would be being part of the conversation and being here and now, listening, sharing, right? I was like, when you drift off, you're not being present, you're drifting off to another time and place, and I don't know where you're going, but it's not present. And so present is kind of, again, that sort of awareness of the senses, kind of present. Um, but one of those senses is also ourselves and our sense of feeling. And so, like, be aware of your body as well when you're present, and that sense of feeling and touch, and right, you feel the air against your skin, or you feel the warmth or the coolness that's touching you, and right, and you see the light and you hear all the sound, right? Smell the air, and that's presence, the here and now, what's happening at this moment, and really nothing will connect you better than that than your senses. Go ahead. Yeah.
I remembered when you were talking about to like engage all of the senses fully, and that all the senses will draw you more into Maya except touch, and that Venus is Maya.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it why it's except touch.
Okay. So this is a very good question. Yeah, I think I don't know how I got distracted there somewhere, but yeah, it's a very good question. I've really wondered about that. So that sense of touch, I think it has a lot to do with like, again, it's not in the moment. And so I noticed this. I'm kind of this traveling bachelor, and so I don't get a lot of touch. Not a lot of people sort of touch a stranger in a sense, right? And so I really, really notice that when someone reaches out and they do touch me, it's this immediate sense of, of presence, of awareness. It's like now, here. And so I think there's the sense of touch really, really connects you to the moment, to the here and the place, but then it also connects you to the other person. It's like after we left the beach yesterday, we went up and there was this kind of special tree. And it looks like, well, every time someone mentions a special tree, they're like, oh, can I show you this and this and that? And I'm like, oh, the tree, bring me the tree. So we went to the tree. But you go up, you don't just look at the tree. You go up and you touch it. And you give the tree a hug and you feel it. You feel, God, it's so solid when you touch it. And it's funny that it's like that sense of touch is able to kind of penetrate. And it's like, how do you know it's so solid just by touching the surface? But you can kind of, you feel it, you know it in a way. And so I think that sense of touch really connects us to the present moment, unlike anything else. In a way, this is what Osho wrote a book on. Anyways, he wrote a book on sex, basically, and the enjoyment of sex. I don't remember what it's called, sexual communication, maybe. Anyways, I can't remember. But it was as famous. It was kind of the book that made Osho as famous as he got and as controversial as he was. It's a small book. It's not a big deal. Um, but he was talking about that moment of orgasm. And again, we'll this is kind of the tantric sexuality, but that moment of orgasm is like, it's this moment of kind of a bliss, right? And it's this moment of really being as connected as you possibly can to the here and now and to the other person. Again, you're literally giving them, as well as a man, anyways, literally giving the essence. And the woman, they're literally taking the essence of man into them. And so this is kind of why they sort of say that, like, there's kind of more, they say women have to be a little bit more cautious of their partners than men do. And this is because the men were giving the essence, the women is actually taking the essence of whatever man who's, well, ejaculating in her anyways, but in a sense, any man she's having sex with. Whereas as men, we're not taking this essence of people into us as much. We're giving it, right? We're offering it. And so anyway, so there's that kind of thing. Um, but that sense of touch, again, I think it's the way it connects us to the here and now. And it doesn't, it's like an immediate thing in a way. Like someone touches me, it's not so much like my eyes, right? Like if I look out, it's very easy for me to misunderstand what I'm seeing or to be looking out at something that's a bit of an illusion and be confusing. Same with the hearing. There's often this confusion and a lot more. The brain has to do a little bit more work to sort of like understand it in a way. Or a sense of touch is touch. It's just immediate presence, there-ness in a way. So I think, again, I'm not fully sure why they kept saying this because usually you think it's all, well, if it's all Maya. Now, Tantra, on the other hand, Tantra sees the Maya as Maya Devi. And so we have a lot more, again, it's not so much about getting away from pleasures and avoiding pleasures and avoiding all those things of our senses. We want to control our senses, but we still want to be able to kind of indulge them. We still want to be able to appreciate this world of senses. And the way you do that is the here and now and engage the senses. It's almost like, well, it's almost means the same thing. To appreciate your senses means the same thing as be here and now away. So yeah, I think it's that immediacy of touch. Now there's also something to touch because, okay, well, I'm a traveling bachelor, and so not a lot of people touch me. And so that doesn't seem, anyways, that seems pretty normal. But I think society as a general is sort of similar to this. We don't really reach out and touch people a lot. Depends on the culture you're in. Some people, some little cultures, they hug a lot every time they see each other. They're sort of giving each other hugging. A lot of sort of handshakes go out, right? Reach into hands. In the Indian culture, they kind of avoid that altogether. They kind of, right, the namaste. There's no touch there at all. Because the touch is very intimate sort of thing. And so I think, well, the Indian people, they want to reserve touch sort of for the closest people to them. But just very immediate about that touch, very sensual about it. Like even someone touches me on the shoulder, um, they don't mean anything sexual. They're just being like, "Hey, friend, how are you?" But there's this warmth, there's this sort of life that gets transmitted through the touch, where it feels like just a touch on the shoulder. It feels so nice, feels so good, especially if it's someone who cares about me, right? Because they're going to touch me in a different way than someone who kind of doesn't. Again, even if it's just a touch on the shoulder, there's a different way to do that. Now, one of the things with touch, they talk about this with sort of tantric sensuality, but it's not bad to bring this up here as well. That's what was I going to say? Oh, it's this sort of like idea of like touch healing and how healing the sense of touch is. And it's really, really super, super healing. But it's just a lot of energy goes out when we touch someone, right? That's like direct transmission, direct connection. But when you touch someone, you want to touch them in a way that kind of feels good to you, right? It feels good under your hand the way you touch them. So when you're giving massage as well, they sort of teach this. Well, they teach more maybe for sensual massage, because some massages you're going really deep. But even if you're pushing really deep on that massage, you want it to feel good, right? And so that feeling good is going to transmit some of the healing energy. And so it's like, if I go out and I get a massage, say I got a massage from one of those prostitutes, it wouldn't it wouldn't be a very deep healing thing. It would just be the sort of surface body, nice feeling I would probably get. But if I go for a massage, one of the last ones I went for was this. Oh, she's a real professional massage, but there's something. I know there's something. We kind of love each other. We've known each other for a lot of years, sort of kept in touch, and never been in a relationship or anything like that. But I know there's a lot of love between us. And so when she gave me a massage, not just because she's a professional, but because I know when she touches me, she's going to touch someone with love, or at least she's going to touch me with that love. And so that's going to get transmitted. And it was such a healing massage like I've never had in my life. Um, and again, it was because I've had a lot of women who love me touch me, but they weren't the professional massage she was also. And so you bring those together, and it's really, really incredible thing. And so we also, when we're looking for kind of a random massage person, we want someone that we feel some connection with, someone that we like to some degree, and someone who's kind of a loving person, right? You want someone who's going to touch you, and when they touch you, it's gonna be in a loving way, even if they're hurting you, like masseuses do sometimes. But it's a loving pain, right? They're doing it out of love, and so it's quite nice that way. And so it's really, really important. Like, it's hard sometimes because I used to do some massage and different works like that, and acupuncture, you kind of have to touch people. And so, again, we want to touch in a way that feels good under our hand, because I don't know what they're going to like. I don't know what's going to feel good to them. But if it feels good to me, then it's probably going to feel good to them, the way we're touching. And so that's kind of that. Venus is that mirror. It's like Venus, there's always sort of two sides. There's always, you can, it's even in love, right? They say, oh, well, you can't fall in love with anyone until you learn to love yourself. And that's kind of that Venus energy. You can't meet a value partner until you learn to value yourself. You can't get a valuable job until you learn to value yourself. The more you value, the more your value the more your value goes up, the more the value of things around you will go up in a sense. Um, and someone mentioned this as well on my traveling, because I tend to stay, well, either I stay with people I know or I stay in the cheapest place in town. And someone was like, well, did you ever think of staying in more expensive places? And then you'll meet more clients who sort of have money and they can spend. And I've sort of noticed that as well. I go stay at expensive places and I tend to make more money. And so it doesn't cost me anymore because, well, I still walk out the door broke. I've spent money, a little bit there, a lot there. I've made a lot to spend there. I made a little bit to spend there. So it almost balances out in the end. But there is a sort of sense that the more you value yourself, the more value will be attracted to you. The more you'll attract people and things of value. So, little dog just came to visit me. Um, so yeah, there's these kind of things with Venus. Venus is, again, we all love Venus. Venus is just, she's so nice, so sweet. But again, if you don't not willing to let your guard down, um, you can't connect with Venus, really. That's the way you connect, is by going defenseless, leaving all your weapons, leaving your walls down, and go defenseless. It's like people looking to meet a partner and they've got nothing but walls up, and it's like, how can you meet anyone when all your walls are up? And they're like, oh, people are like this, people are like that. Oh, and it's like, well, maybe people are like that because you have your walls up, you know? And so if we want a good result, we have to kind of give that nice energy out to get good energy back. That's just kind of the way it works. So, what else can we say about Venus? Well, I wanted to talk, maybe I'll talk about that just a little bit again, that sense of independence, that sense of consent, which I found very, and you see a lot of words that are kind of scent in them, consensual, consensus, different things like that. And that's all the senses, with the senses engaged. And so it's like, when we do things with our senses engaged, we kind of do them fully. We're fully engaged with that person or that event. And that's what consent is you kind of have that freedom, that sort of like no coercion. You're not forced to give up your senses. And in a way, that's what I like. Sometimes I feel like you get these like at the beach is the beach, right? So it's, let's say like you get these women, sometimes they're walking around and they're not wearing really any clothing and they're dressed very loose. And sometimes I feel like actually they are violating me because they didn't, like, they're not looking for my consent to give them attention. They're kind of demanding I give them attention in a way. And in a way, you could say just attention demanding people are that way. It's like there's no sort of like, it's like if I walk out my house and there's a clown standing on the end of the road, kind of like trying to entertain me. And you get this when you're traveling sometime, right? And then some entertainer comes along, they're trying to entertain you, and then they want money. But that wasn't a consensual agreement. You weren't looking for any entertainment. You didn't want it, or I was trying to ignore them. Maybe they're kind of annoying you. And so it's like it's this kind of dirty transaction they're looking for, kind of force the money out of you. And Venus is really the important thing about Venus is that consent. You have to be a free person to drop your boundaries and your guards. And then you can have the Venus experience. And if you're not freely dropping your guards, if you're not freely entering into that agreement, then you're not going to get that sort of full, sort of consensual, beautiful, creative agreement that helps you to see your own essence. And again, that's what you're doing with your partner is you let yourself go so they can enter you. They let themselves go, you can enter them. And it's not so you can enjoy their body. It's so that you can enjoy your own body through them. Right? So that's why we need a good lover. We need a good partner. So we can really appreciate who we are through our partner's eyes. And so it's easy to talk about that in a sexual way, but even a broad way, just in a relationship and who you are, if you really want to appreciate who you are, you can really, at least Venus teaches us, that you can really do that best if you have a partner. If you have someone else who appreciates you and you see yourself through their eyes, and you can fully appreciate yourself. And so it's this way, Venus is a little bit selfish, but the Venus energy will never work if you maintain the selfishness. That you have to let the partner in. You have to let that other in. I'm using partners, but it could be like Burning Man. You have to let Burning Man into you to enjoy and appreciate Burning Man.
There could be children also. Like when you have a child, it's like a mirror relationship, and if you don't respect your child for who they are, then you work against them and you hurt yourself.
Exactly. With children, with everything, with animals like that as well. You have to. they have to be free to come to you when you're calling them, for example, right? We know what happens if they're not. You're pulling on the leash and they're fighting, right? And sometimes you have to do that, right? It's for their own good, and we have to push and pull a little ways. But if you really want, if it's that Venus experience that we want, if we really want, we have to do it in a very peaceful, gentle, balanced way. The deal, the negotiation, all of that has to be balanced. And if it's not, if there's some coercion there, it's not going to be that kind of pure Venus experience. It won't be that. You'll miss something. You'll miss something. And if you're not engaged to your senses, you're going to miss the present. Right? It's like my friend closing his eyes and going off. And it's like, well, if you want to be present, open your eyes and see what's in front of you. And that's what, well, presents itself to you in a way, or presents itself to your senses in a way. And so we have to be ready for whatever that's presenting. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious what you have to say about Venus and 12th house and dream work, because like I found that dream work, when you're somebody that's very scattered in real life, you have hard time knowing what you want, who you are, then you teach yourself to connect to your subconscious, and that's kind of like Venus in a way, where it's like you're present in your mind, because when you dream, you let all guards down. You're really, your subconscious self is there. And so I'm just curious what you have to say about Venus and the dream world and the 12th house kind of relationship.
That's Venus's favorite place to be, in 12th house or in Pisces, in the dream and the fantasy. Like you said, there's no guards, there's no boundaries. You're fantasizing. You can leap over tall buildings, you can fly, you can do anything in a fantasy. And so Venus really loves that sort of dream world, dreamscape sort of places. Um, and again, what the fantasy does is that it helps us get away from ourselves for a minute, for a day, for a session, for a thing. Now, well, the 12th house is already a meditative place, but when you put Venus there, it's like a kind of meditation that's very good is like the visualizations. You do these guided visualizations. You come to a door, open it, what's there? You come to a window, what do you see out the window? You come to the top of a hill, what do you see? And so we guide the person through it, but it's still their own visions. It's their own subconscious that they open the door. What do they see? Right. So these kind of things these can be really great to help people sort of get out of their kind of shed their personal identity, that sense of solid identity. Yeah, helps them kind of get out of that. Now that becomes a little bit confusing, because I've also talked about that you have to be seated in yourself. You have to know who you are in a sense, but it's different. It's like you can still know who you are and be ready for all the possibilities of life. You can still know who you are and be a child sometimes and be an adult sometimes. And I think the more that you do know who you are and the more you are seated in the self, the more you can actually kind of become other people and take on other roles and play other roles, because it's like if you're not comfortable with who you are, that's when you want to keep it like this, because then you're controlled and you're like, this is who I am. Right? And it's because you're not so comfortable. But the more you get comfortable, and the more you realize most of the world is very peaceful and everybody just wants to kind of be nice to you and help you out and all of these things, and you can let all those guards down, then you can kind of be somebody else. So you need that sort of feeling of safety and security to let the guard down to begin with. And well, a lot of the clients that we're going to deal with, and maybe ourselves in different parts of our lives, didn't have that safety and security. And so we were very kind of stuck to an identity of who we are, because, well, if I try to stray away from that, it's very dangerous. Someone's going to laugh at me because I don't know something, or someone's going to tease me, or I'll do something wrong, or all these like when you have depression and anxiety, you just sort of see the dangers that are out there everywhere. You're not looking at this world as a safe place where I can just do anything I want. Um, you sort of see it as a dangerous place, and so your anxiety kind of pushes us into these little boxes a little bit more, not willing to take on different masks in a way. Um, but I think also, again, for someone like me, I was doing all that construction and civil. It was so it was so needed to sort of drop some of those masks and just play and take some time to kind of be a kid again in a sense, and that's a really wonderful way to connect to who we are. There's a lot of, I'm not sure if I really like this. There's a lot of sort of like, not bad, I guess, but a lot of inner child work sort of happening these days, inner child psychology. And this is good and bad. Again, it's good for a session and things like that. See a lot of people kind of taking it too far and really almost acting like children again as they're adults. And that's kind of not what any of that means. At least I don't think it does. Um, but it's good to, like, the best remedy for someone like for the best remedy for any older people is children. And this is where, like, kind of the classical family structures were really good, was that, right, you have a bunch of children, and then grandma and grandpa help you take care of them. And so the children are the medicine for grandpa and grandma. And actually, the children sort of learn some respect from grandma and grandma, because I think I said the last class, we make our children be a little bit nicer to grandma and grandma. They can't hit them and they can't be rough with grandma and grandma. It's like, be gentle with grandma and grandma, be nice to them. And so it's very, oh, this is the best thing for children and grandparents, is that the youth and the age, this is like the best relationship in the world in a lot of ways for both of them. Um, and for me, I think, well, I'm lucky because I quite easily am able to sort of, like, people kind of let their guards down fairly quick for me, and I can connect quite deeply, and I can start to see the world very quickly through someone else's eyes. And so I just love this when I'm with children, because it's just such a fresh perspective. I noticed this also when I was taking like groups to India. And so people are coming to India for their first time. And so I get to see India again through their eyes, and see like what they're getting excited about, and see the things that they're kind of like, hey, Mike, you see that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, oh, wow, yeah, that's cool. And well, if I would have, I just saw that stupid thing a month ago, and it didn't make it was just some stupid thing that I see every day. It meant nothing to me. Right. But you see that fresh eyes, and they're like, oh, you see that? It's, wow, isn't that cool? It's like, well, yeah, actually it is. It is pretty cool, you know? And so this is really, really nice. And Venus kind of, I think she might represent some of that freshness as well. Right. So that fresh eyes and kind of seeing through the fresh way. Um, and maybe that relates with some of with the Rohini placements in Taurus, and some of the moon signs there. Yeah, go ahead on.
So how do you help somebody who feels unsafe in the world? You know, how do you help them to feel safe in the world again? Like, I feel like that's a big thing for a lot of people, and then that's what, you know, they can't do what will make them happy because they're stuck in that box, because that's what make them feel safe, because they've always been controlled and told that everything they do is wrong. Like, how do you help somebody feel safe again, to be free, to be kind of foolish, you know?
Well, this does, it does take some, it takes some time, it takes some space, and really what we have to do is we have to be that example for them. And we have to generate that sense of trust, um, that they can trust us at least. Okay, maybe it's a big scary place, but let's start in one place. And like, where do you feel like you're safe? What memories do you go back to when you feel like you're safe? And so we find these places that they do feel some trust and do feel some safety. try to grow that. So I need to turn.
Are you okay? All good?
Yeah,
You
there's,
okay?
yeah, I just
Okay.
couldn't breathe for a moment. Yeah, there's really no magic cure for that because there's sense of distrust and their inability to feel safe usually sort of like happened over quite a long period of time. And so it's something they have to dedicate some time to. And it's hard, like it's geez, I can't imagine like I remember when I was doing construction, I remember like these guys, they would sometimes bring their kids out to the construction site. I remember you see this like little girl, like she's like 6 years old, and she's in the middle of all these big, tough, dirty construction workers, right? And oh wow, I can't imagine the courage it must take this little girl to come in the middle, and you can see her, they're looking up, you know, and we're looking down, we don't even know what's going on either. But then she smiles, and it's like all of a sudden, then we all like smile, right? And so there's that trust there, and so really what it is just like being open ourselves, uh, to allow other people to open and showing them some trust, that we trust them, that we feel safe while they're around them, and then just sort of giving those little bits of encouragement where we can. But it really takes a long time to sort of build that trust when people don't have it. And oh well, that's got to be, that's it's tough when you don't trust, you're going out and you don't feel like you're safe everywhere and everybody's out to get you. And yeah, it's I can imagine it's quite tough. um it's like, well, again, at the beach yesterday, everybody was pretty cool. Like there was nobody gawking at the women. They didn't, as far as I know, nobody was making any comments. But there was two guys who were kind of sitting on the other side of the stream from us, and you can see them. There were a couple kind of tough guys, and they were kind of making comments at all the women as they went by. And now, in that sort of situation, probably wasn't a big deal. The women could still feel safe because there were so many people around and different things like that, and so it wasn't a big deal. I'm pretty sure some of the women gave some comment back or something like this. There was kind of a fence between them too. There was like, I was on the public beach and the other side was the private beach. Uh, America's kind of funny that way. It's always a private something or other. Um, and so there was sort of that safety there though. And I was watching this sort of stuff, and and I thought, okay, that's pretty cool because, well, I hear on the news and stuff that women get comments and catcalled all the time, and I never see any of this kind of stuff in my world. And so that was kind of this one chance where it's like, oh yeah, I can see their catcalling, and I thought, oh, it's all probably pretty safe and pretty playful. And then I thought, well, what if the same thing happened in the middle of the night where it was just her and them on the street? I probably wouldn't feel so safe and playful anymore. Right? I'd probably feel, oh my God, what's this guy's going to do to me? Um, and so the sort of setting and the scene and things like that does make a big difference. Well, Venus is the mask, Venus is the setting, the scene, and all of that kind of stuff. But but yeah, it's quite difficult to work with that sort of thing, um, to kind of make people feel safe. But again, it's kind of teach by example, and just slowly encouragement without expecting too much. And for myself, again, I said quite early here, like the sort of classic therapeutic model is this idea of like that client talks and I listen, and then I just make a few comments, but I don't talk about myself. Um, and I throw all that out. I don't believe in that because for me, I want to make a connection with my clients. I want to make a connection with the people I'm dealing with. and it's not a one-way connection. And Venus is not a one-way connection. If you want to connect with Venus, it has to be two ways. You know, it's like there has to be some flow, some movement. And you asked earlier about these people that kind of hoard and they don't let go of their money or their possessions or their things and everything. And in a way, it's just kind of rotting them. It's rotting it's like money has no value until you spend it, in a sense.
It's like having a bunch of fresh fruits and keeping them, like, because you want to look at them and then they just rot.
Exactly like that. Um, and so it's, yeah, you have to share it, you have to spread it, and so we have to teach people that it's okay to share yourself a little bit. Um, and that's fine to do that. I think, well, that's part of my sort of magic. When I first started to travel, like people sort of think, oh, you travel, and then they imagine they're like 2 week holidays every year, and they think, oh, everybody's traveling like that, and so they think, oh, you're just partying and you're going out and you're having sex with all these beautiful women, Mike, and you're just having so much fun and you're doing this and that and all of that. And it's like, no. And I really feel like if I was doing that, if I was kind of sleeping with every beautiful woman I had an opportunity to sleep with, that I don't think I would be able to well, I wouldn't be able to work with as many women as I do. Like, must be 90% of my clientele is women that I work with. And that's because I'm safe, because they can trust me. And well, even if they didn't know, like if I was going off and sleeping with a gazillion women, and even if they didn't know I was doing that, I would have some energy of that would come out. Like it wouldn't be able to really hide it. They would feel it somehow. Right. And so that sense of trust and openness wouldn't be there in the same way. Right. And so we really have to kind of cultivate our whole lives in order to sort of live the kind of life where people can trust us. Right. Whether or not they know it or not, kind of thing, but they can sort of trust us. Um, and so it's a lifetime's work on our part to kind of get that one client to open up and trust and feel secure around us. They can share, they can do what they need to do. So like that. Now I'm gonna have to go. So this will give an hour and a half recording, which pretty much covers everything. But I do have to go because I'm considered picking up. We're going to we went to the public side of the beach yesterday. Today we're going to go to the private side of the beach where there's nice lawn and whatever, a little cover charge. And I don't know, in part of it's travel, and this is very Venusian. As I just travel, like I, I, I'm not trying to control my travels. Like I've got an idea, I've got a rough outline of where I'm going to go and what I'm going to see, but I don't know the people I'm coming to meet. And so they're like, oh, well, you want to see Austin City? We can go do this and we can go do that. And so they give me a bunch of options, and I always choose the natural things. And I like to connect with the nature of places I'm around for the most part. And so I don't know where I'm going to go one day to the next. And so they, well, now it's going to be we're going to pick up some different people along the way. And so we'll go enjoy the private beach with some different people. But that's that sort of openness. I come in peace and I'm kind of open for anything. And I really have a lot of trust in people that, well, everybody does just want to help me and they want to make sure I have a good time and they want to kind of take care of me in a sense. And so I just kind of go with the flow. And that's what the trust allows me to do, is to travel like I do. Without that, I'd be locked in my room somewhere. And so yeah, I'm going to the beach. Yeah. So I don't know, do you have any more questions on that?
Well, I don't really know how to, I was just curious about the relationship between Venus and Pluto, because I feel like they would work well together in the way of transformation, you know, and creation. I feel like they're kind of partners in that sense. Like, I don't know, I feel like they could, by combining the both, there's possibility of like big creative transformation and change.
Well, there is, but it's like it's a little bit Venus and Pluto would probably be a little bit like Venus and Rahu. And so there is this great chance of change, but it's very uncontrolled sort of change. Like Pluto's is very rebellious, and so it's going to do something different, and it's going to do something against the norm. And so there's potential for really great creativity in it, of course. But anytime anytime you bring like Pluto or Rahu into it, it also brings great chance of disaster to happen, disaster to strike. So it's a very sort of very volatile sort of energy, a very volatile sort of trust.
It almost has that black magic kind of feel to it in a way.
It does a little bit. It's kind of like it's like going to Burning Man and being that open and trusting. But mostly what people are giving away is drugs and booze and sex and right these kind of things. Um, so very revolutionary and like I think Venus and Pluto would probably be a very good description of something like Burning Man. It's very revolutionary and it has this sort of higher purpose to it. From what I hear, I've never been to a Burning Man, but I don't know. But there is a side to it that sounds very beautiful and very spiritual and very lovely and that kind of thing. But there's also this sort of oh wow, there's such a again such a good opportunity for disaster to strike there and really get caught up in the wrong way. Guy was talking to me, he was just talking to me about Burning Man last night and all these different Burning Mans and God, I think I know the whole history of Burning Man now. But he was saying about kids and he was like, it's okay. He's like, bring kids like children to Burning Man. He says, that's perfectly fine. He says, no problems. Your kids will probably be, they won't have any problem. He said, but then once they become about an adolescence and we're about the age of about 16 or 12 to about 18 sort of thing, he says, these kids, he says, it's not bad. Bring them to Burning Man if there's like a whole group of kids and that group of kids, like teenagers, agrees to stick together. Because then they're going to learn from their peers. They're going to learn from their own age groups. But it's like, bring your 14-year-old daughter to Burning Man and let her just run wild. Well, everybody who gets an opportunity, well, they're not going to see her as a 14-year-old girl. And so they're going to offer her drugs and they're going to offer her this and they're going to offer her that. And she's not going to be learning from her peer group. She's going to learn some really hard lessons kind of thing. Right. And that's kind of that Pluto energy where it can really go anyway. There's a lot of chance for enlightenment at Burning Man, but wow, there's a lot of chance for crashing and Burning Man. So um, yeah, that's
Just like I had this thought when you were talking about mushrooms, because mushrooms can have that Venusian where you're like, ooh, like I feel everything is beautiful, and then there's that Pluto that sometimes hits you, and then
okay.
it can become dangerous, right? Like when you take a lot of mushrooms and you feel faced with all those harsh truths and you know, like you said, hard lessons, like, but it can be very healing. It's just like uh there's like this play with danger and with the letting your guard down, but and it's like, okay, like I'm balancing out, like, is it going to serve me to be very much in danger but I can learn some hard lessons, you know? Like in that sense it can be useful, but in another sense it's like, are you strong enough? Can you handle it, you know?
Yeah, that's it. It's and that's what a lot of times happens. People want to kind of like dance with the devil in a sort of way, and then they get bit by the devil, and then they blame the devil. And they're like, it's all his fault. But it's like, well, no, you asked for that dance partner in a sense. And so there is that sort of, and Venus is that way, and even our senses are that way. It's like fire up all your senses, be here and now, be fully aware of everything that's around you. But don't like and don't let your senses control you. you know, so there's this very fine line of Venus being this beautiful goddess and this really dark devil in a sense.
There's this friend of mine, also like traveler, always live on the street, musician guy. And one time I was feeling I was in a bad part of my life, and he told me something that I always think about, and like it's very nice and wise. And he said, don't let your emotions control you, let your emotions run through you, you know? Like you can feel all those things, but you know, let them go inside and out, and don't let them control you. I feel like that's a good Venusian uh uh advice.
Yeah, and she is like, she's on the clamshell beside the ocean, right, where the water is flowing, it's coming in, it's going out, right, being controlled by the moon, it's waxing, it's waning, and so that's that sort of like, yeah, don't let them control you, but they have to flow. Let them flow, let them move, feel it, see it, be here and now. So yeah, praise be Venus, the great mother goddess, the great sister goddess, I guess. Yeah. So
It's so fun to talk about Venus. It's hard to stop, you know? It's like it's very much on brand. Like she's like, "Ooh, talk about me," you know? I don't know.
she is very much, yeah.
Like
She's like,
it's very cool and fun to think about. Like I have so many thoughts. I like the relationship that Venus has with animals too, because like, yeah, I don't know. It's
well,
interesting.
she's quite connected with nature in many ways. Like she's the nature goddess, the goddess of the forest nymphs and the forest fairies and all of that sort of stuff. Um, if anybody's doing like natural healing, they need some Venus for that natural healing. Um, this kind of thing. So yeah, she's all connected to all of that kind of thing. So it's nice to chat with you. And
Thank you.
thanks for hanging out for the extra hour so we could kind of
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
record over this stuff because I can't
No, I
talk to
love it.
myself. It just doesn't work. So,
Yeah, enjoy your time at the beach
oh, I
and in
will.
Texas.
Oh, it's been, they're, so good. Texas hospitality. Just doing it for me. So wonderful. Yeah. And enjoy your travels. Are you going into Puebla soon?
I'm going to Oaxaca, which is right next to Puebla. I'm going there in
Okay.
5 days or 6 days. 5 days. I'm really excited. Can't
Okay.
wait.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. It would have been a pretty easy stop in Puebla for a day or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm
Oh,
moving too
I'm
fast.
so sorry to keep you, but do you dive into astrocartography in any way?
This has been coming up and up and up. Actually, the funny thing about us, I just looked at my astrocartography a couple days, it's been years. And actually, I'm traveling right on my Venus line now. Kind of, I just got onto it now in Texas. And as I go north through the US, I basically stay on my Venus line up to Montreal. It goes to there. So I don't know much, but I'm teaching Venus and I'm on my Venus line. So
Yeah. Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
No, there's something to astrocartography, but I don't know what.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah,
It's it's kind of confusing, but it's interesting. Like I looked in yesterday. I have my Karen. I don't know if you use Karen in Vedic
I don't,
astrology.
but I know a bit about them. Yeah.
He's the wounded healer, or whatever. But yeah, he's straight in Oaxaca where I'm going, and Puebla. So that's why I was like, huh, maybe I should go to Puebla.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was good luck following your wounded healer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sure. He'll have some lessons for you.
Mm.
Yeah. So I am going to run though.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to chat. And thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, have a nice day.
You too. Bye
Take
bye.
care.